I was just pouring coffee when the little girl crashed into my legs, looked up at me with tears streaming down her face, and said the one word that would change everything. Mummy. Her father, a Korean Mafia boss named Yi-won Park with scars on his knuckles and secrets in his eyes, stared at me like I'd just become the most dangerous person in his world, and 20 minutes later he offered me $200,000 a year to live in his mansion. I should have said no, but his daughter was still gripping my hand, and I've never been good at walking away from children who need saving. Welcome to K-Stories by Aurora. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Also tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Let's dive in. The coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and broken dreams. Esther wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her dark hands moving in practiced circles while her mind wandered somewhere far from this cramped Chicago storefront. Through the window, October rain hammered the streets, turning the sidewalk into a river of gray. Just like her bank account. Just like her prospects. Table 6 needs a refill, Marcus called from the kitchen, his voice cutting through her thoughts. She grabbed the pot without answering. 27 years old with a master's degree in child psychology, and here she was, pouring coffee for businessmen who didn't bother learning her name. The weight of her student loans felt heavier than the ceramic pot in her hand. Table 6 was occupied by a man in an expensive suit, his phone pressed to his ear. He didn't look up as she approached. "I don't care what Dimitri thinks," he said coldly into the phone. "Tell him if he touches my shipment again, I'll..." He paused, finally noticing Esther. Something flickered across his face, not quite embarrassment, but awareness. He was handsome in a dangerous way, all sharp angles and colder eyes. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. The kind of man who looked like he'd never smiled in his life. "Coffee?" Esther asked, keeping her voice professionally neutral. He covered the phone's mouthpiece. "Please." His accent carried a trace of something, Korean smoothed by years in America. As she poured, Esther caught sight of the tattoo peeking from his collar, Korean characters she couldn't read. Her hand remained steady. She'd learned not to ask questions in this neighborhood. The South Side had taught her that survival meant minding your business. The bell above the door chimed. "Daddy." A small girl burst through the entrance, rain-soaked and grinning. She couldn't have been more than 4, with dark curls plastered to her cherubic face and a pink backpack nearly as big as she was. Behind her, a tall woman in a severe black suit, clearly a bodyguard, tried to catch up. "Isabella," the man at table 6 stood abruptly, his phone forgotten. The coldness in his voice evaporated, replaced by something Esther wouldn't have believed possible, panic. "You can't run off like that." But Isabella wasn't listening. She was spinning in circles, sending droplets flying from her little yellow raincoat. "We saw ducks, Daddy, in the puddles. Miss Vera said they were looking for food, but I think they were dancing." Her spinning sent her crashing directly into Esther's legs. The coffee pot wobbled. Esther caught it with one hand while her other automatically steadied the little girl. "Whoa, careful there, sweetheart." Isabella looked up, rain-wet curls framing huge brown eyes. For a moment she just stared. Then her small face crumpled. "I miss my mummy," she whispered, and the words hit Esther like a physical blow. The bodyguard Vera rushed forward. "Isabella, come here right now. I'm so sorry, Mr. Park, she just..." "It's okay," Esther heard herself saying. She knelt down, bringing herself to the child's eye level, the coffee pot forgotten on a nearby table. "Hey, it's all right to miss your mummy. That's a big feeling." Isabella's lower lip trembled. "She went to heaven. Daddy said she's watching me, but I can't see her." Something in Esther's chest cracked open. She knew this pain. She'd counseled dozens of children through grief in her graduate practicum. But this was different. This was real, raw, happening right in front of her in a coffee shop that smelled like burnt beans. "Your mummy loved you very much," Esther said softly, "and even though you can't see her, all that love is still here." She pressed her hand gently over the girl's heart. "Right here, that never goes away." Isabella's eyes widened. Then, without warning, she threw her small arms around Esther's neck. "Mummy," She breathed into Esther's shoulder, gripping her with surprising strength. The coffee shop went silent. Esther froze, acutely aware of every eye on them, aware of the bodyguard's sharp intake of breath, aware of the man, Mr. Park, standing absolutely still, his face unreadable. "Sweetheart," Esther whispered gently, "I'm not." "Please," Isabella pulled back, her small hands now gripping Esther's arms. "Please be my mummy. You smell nice, you're warm, and your voice sounds like bedtime stories." Tears burned behind Esther's eyes. She should untangle herself, should apologize to the clearly wealthy father and his bodyguard, should retreat behind the safety of the counter and never look back. But instead, she found herself smoothing the wet curls back from Isabella's forehead. "How about I be your friend?" Esther offered. "Would that be okay?" "Okay," Isabella agreed, but she didn't let go of Esther's legs. "What's your name?" "Esther." "Like the queen in the Bible." Esther blinked in surprise. "Yes, exactly like that. You know that story." "Mummy used to read it to me." Isabella's smile was sunshine breaking through storm clouds. "She was brave. Are you brave, Esther?" "I try to be." "Then you can be my friend and my new mummy." "Isabella," Mr. Park's voice cut through the moment like a blade, not harsh but commanding. He'd moved closer without Esther noticing, now standing just feet away. "That's not appropriate." He struggled with the last word, as if he wasn't used to considering appropriateness. Esther stood quickly, professional mask sliding back into place. "I apologize, Mr. Park. She's clearly had an emotional moment. I didn't mean to." "No." He held up one hand and Esther noticed the scars across his knuckles. Old fighter's wounds. "You handled it perfectly. Better than—" He glanced at Vera, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Better than we have been." His eyes met Esther's for the first time, really met them. They were dark, almost black, and they held depths she couldn't begin to read. "How long has it been?" Esther asked quietly, social worker instincts overriding common sense. "Since she lost her mother." 8 months. The words seemed to cost him. 8 months, 2 weeks, 3 days. The precision of his answer told Esther everything she needed to know about his grief. Isabella tugged on Esther's apron. "Can you come to my house? We have a big garden and Daddy has a piano and I'm learning to play Twinkle Twinkle, but I only know the first part and—" "Bella," Mr. Park's voice gentled. "Esther has work, she can't just leave." "Actually," Marcus's voice came from behind the counter, "her shift ended 10 minutes ago. I was just about to tell her to clock out." Esther shot her manager a look that could have curdled milk. Marcus just shrugged, clearly sensing drama and wanting to see how it played out. "Then it's settled." Isabella clapped her hands. "You'll come home with us." "I don't think," Esther began. "Please." Mr. Park's single word stopped her cold. Not because it was commanding, but because it was desperate. This dangerous-looking man with his expensive suit and his fighter's scars was looking at her like she held the answer to a question he'd been asking for 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. "My daughter hasn't smiled like that since—" He didn't finish the sentence. "Didn't need to. Just for an hour, have dinner with us. Let her have this moment." Every rational thought in Esther's head screamed at her to decline. This man was clearly involved in something dangerous. The tattoos, the phone conversation about shipments, the bodyguard, the way he carried himself like violence was a second language. But Isabella was still gripping her hand, looking up with those huge brown eyes full of hope. And Esther had never been good at saying no to children. 1 hour, she heard herself agree, but then I need to get home. Isabella's squeal of joy was almost worth the look of knowing satisfaction on Marcus's face. The car was exactly what Esther expected, a black SUV with tinted windows and leather seats that probably cost more than her annual salary. Isabella chattered nonstop from her booster seat, pointing out landmarks and telling stories that jumped from topic to topic with the chaotic energy of a 4-year-old mind. Mr. Park sat in the front passenger seat, occasionally interjecting with soft corrections. "That's not a castle, Bella, it's the old water tower." No, we can't get a pony. We discussed this. Vera drove with military precision, her eyes constantly scanning mirrors and streets. Esther noticed she took random turns, doubling back twice, checking for tails. So, Esther ventured, trying to fill the weighted silence, Park, that's Korean. Yes, my family has been in Chicago for 30 years, but we maintain our heritage. Mr. Park glanced back at her. I'm second generation, more American than anything else now. Daddy's the boss, Isabella announced proudly. Everyone has to do what he says. Isabella, warning in his voice. What? It's true. Uncle Jin said you're the... Bella. The little girl subsided, but her eyes danced with mischief. They drove out of the south side, through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer until they reached an area Esther had only seen in magazines. Gated communities. Mansions set back from tree-lined streets. Old money and new crime living side by side, pretending not to see each other. The Park estate, because that's what it was, an estate, sat behind iron gates topped with security cameras. The house itself was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, all clean lines and understated wealth. Gardens stretched in every direction, dormant for winter but clearly elaborate. You live here, Esther couldn't keep the awe from her voice. It's too big, Mr. Park said simply, but it's secure, and Isabella needs space to run. The inside was somehow more intimidating than the outside. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, art that looked like it belonged in museums. But there were also signs of a child's presence. A forgotten stuffed rabbit on the stairs, crayon drawings hung with magnets on a stainless steel fridge, a pink bicycle propped near the door. Welcome. Isabella grabbed Esther's hand again, pulling her toward the stairs. I want to show you my room. I have a dollhouse that's bigger than me and... Bella, let Esther breathe. Mr. Park caught his daughter gently. Why don't you go wash up? Dinner will be ready soon. Isabella pouted but obeyed, thundering up the stairs with the subtle grace of a small elephant. Esther found herself suddenly alone with this dangerous stranger in his palatial home, and reality crashed back with force. Mr. Park, I should... Yi-won. He moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses. If you're going to have dinner in my home, you should at least know my first name. Yi-won, she repeated, the syllables foreign on her tongue. I appreciate the invitation, but I think maybe this was a mistake. Your daughter is clearly going through something, and I'm not. I mean, I can't just... You're a child psychologist. It wasn't a question. Esther blinked. How did you? The way you handled Isabella, the questions you asked, the way you knew exactly what to say to a grieving child. Yi-won offered her a glass. She didn't take it. That's not training from a coffee shop. Master's degree, Esther admitted, but the job market is complicated. Because you're overqualified for entry positions and underexperienced for senior roles. He said it like he'd researched this exact problem. The eternal catch-22 of graduate education. Esther crossed her arms. You seem to know a lot about me for someone I met 20 minutes ago. I know very little about you. Yi-won set the untouched glass down. But I know desperation when I see it. I know that look in someone's eyes when they're treading water, waiting for someone to either save them or let them drown. And which are you planning to do? The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. I'm planning to offer you a job. The room tilted. I'm sorry. Isabella needs a nanny. A proper one, not just bodyguards playing babysitter. He gestured upward, where childish singing could be heard from the second floor. Someone with actual training in child development. Someone who understands grief and can help her process what she's going through. You want to hire me, based on a 5-minute interaction in a coffee shop. Yes. You don't know anything about me. I could be anyone. I could be. Esther Marie Johnson, born in Memphis, Tennessee, raised by your grandmother after your parents died in a car accident when you were 7, full scholarship to Northwestern University, master's degree in developmental psychology with a focus on childhood trauma, currently working 3 part-time jobs to service your student loans while searching for a position in your field. He paused. You volunteer at a children's hospital every Saturday morning. You haven't missed a shift in 2 years. Esther's blood ran cold. How do you? I make it my business to know things. Yiwon's voice was matter-of-fact, not threatening. Especially about people who touch my daughter's life. Vera started running your background check the moment Isabella called you Mummy. I had the basics before we left the coffee shop. That's insane. That's cautious. He moved closer, and Esther forced herself not to step back. My daughter is the most important thing in my world, Esther. The only important thing. I don't take chances with her safety or her happiness. I'm not interested in working for a criminal. The words hung in the air like thrown knives. Yiwon's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Respect, maybe. Smart. Most people dance around that conclusion. They pretend not to see what's obvious. So you're admitting it. I'm admitting nothing. He picked up his drink again, swirling the liquid. But hypothetically, if I were involved in businesses of a complex nature, would that change how you treat Isabella? Would she deserve less compassion because of her father's choices? Esther opened her mouth, then closed it. He had her there. The job pays $200,000 a year, Yiwon continued. Plus room and board if you want it, health insurance, retirement contributions, and all your student loans paid off within 6 months. Esther's knees actually went weak. That's not possible. It's extremely possible, for me. He set the glass down with a soft click. In exchange, you live here full-time, manage Isabella's daily care and education, and help her heal from losing her mother. You'd have weekends off, your own suite of rooms, and full access to whatever resources you need. Why me? You could hire someone with 20 years of experience for that money. Because Isabella gripped your legs and called you Mummy, and you didn't pull away. Yiwon's voice dropped, going rough with emotion. Because in 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, that's the first time I've seen my daughter reach for someone. The first time she's looked at another woman and seen safety instead of a stranger. That's not enough reason to. And because the way you look at her reminds me of how her mother used to look at her. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did Esther. Like she's the most precious thing in the world. Like you'd burn down cities to keep her safe. Footsteps on the stairs interrupted the moment. Isabella appeared, now in dry clothes, a purple dress with a tulle skirt that she'd clearly chosen herself. I picked my fancy dress, she announced, because we have a special guest. She'd also put on plastic princess shoes that lit up with every step and what looked like every piece of costume jewelry she owned. She was ridiculous and adorable, and so desperate for maternal approval that Esther felt her resistance crumbling. You look beautiful, Esther said honestly. Isabella beamed. Will you sit next to me at dinner? Every rational thought screamed at her to run. To politely decline, walk out the door, and forget this surreal afternoon ever happened. This man was dangerous. This situation was impossible. This was not how real life worked. But she thought about her overdue rent notice, her empty refrigerator, the rejection emails stacking up in her inbox, the weight of debt that grew heavier every month, drowning her slowly. And she thought about Isabella, who'd lost her mother and was desperately searching for someone to fill that void. 1 week, Esther heard herself say. Trial basis, we see if it works for both of us. Yiwon's smile was small but genuine. Deal. Isabella shrieked with joy and launched herself at Esther's legs again. Esther caught her, lifting the little girl up, and met Yiwon's eyes over his daughter's head. Those dark eyes that held secrets and violence, and, underneath it all, the same desperate hope she'd seen in Isabella. She had no idea what she was agreeing to. But as Isabella's small arms wrapped around her neck, and the little girl whispered, I'm so happy you're here, Esther, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she'd been drowning for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like when someone threw you a lifeline. Even if that lifeline came from the most dangerous man she'd ever met. Dinner was surreal. They ate in a dining room that could have seated 30, but felt intimate with just the 3 of them clustered at one end of a mahogany table. The food, prepared by a chef Esther never saw, was restaurant quality. Herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables that actually tasted like vegetables instead of obligations, fresh bread that was still warm. Isabella chattered between bites, monopolizing Esther's attention with questions. What's your favorite color? Do you like princesses or astronauts better? Can you do a cartwheel? Why is the sky blue but space is black? Esther answered each one patiently, watching Yiwon from the corner of her eye. He ate slowly, precisely, but she caught him watching his daughter with an expression that made her chest ache. This man, this dangerous, cold, calculated man, looked at Isabella like she was the sun, and he was a planet caught in her gravity. Daddy never does cartwheels, Isabella confided to Esther in a stage whisper. He says he's too old. I'm 34, Yiwon protested mildly. That's not old. Grandpa Jin is only 42 and he's ancient, Isabella countered. Uncle Jin, Yiwon corrected. And he's not your grandfather, thank God. Why do you thank God? Isabella asked. Is it because Uncle Jin tells bad jokes? Esther choked on her water. Yiwon's lips twitched, among other reasons. After dinner, Isabella dragged Esther on a tour of the house. Each room was more impressive than the last, a library with floor-to-ceiling books, a gym that looked like it belonged in a professional facility, a home theater, an indoor pool. But it was Isabella's room that stopped Esther cold. It was a child's fantasy, princess canopy bed that promised dollhouse shelves overflowing with toys and books. But what struck Esther were the photographs covering one entire wall. Isabella and a beautiful blonde woman, the woman pregnant, glowing, the woman holding newborn Isabella, years of memories captured and displayed like a shrine. That's Mummy, Isabella said simply. Daddy says we should remember her always. She was beautiful. Esther stepped closer, studying the photos. The woman, Isabella's mother, had kind eyes and a generous smile. In every picture, she looked at Isabella or Yiwon like they hung the moon. She got sick, Isabella continued in that matter-of-fact way children have when they've been told something difficult many times. Cancer. It was in her brain. The doctors tried to help, but they couldn't. She picked up a stuffed bunny from her bed, hugging it tight. Daddy cried. I wasn't supposed to see, but I did. Esther knelt down. It's okay to cry when we miss someone, even Daddy's. He doesn't cry anymore. He just works all the time and looks angry. Isabella's voice dropped to a whisper. I think he misses her as much as I do. I'm sure he does, sweetheart. But now you're here. Isabella's mood shifted with childlike speed, sadness replaced by excitement. And maybe you can make Daddy smile again. He used to smile a lot before Mummy went to heaven. Before Esther could respond to that loaded statement, Yiwon appeared in the doorway. Bedtime, Bella. But Esther just got here. And she'll be here tomorrow, and the day after that. He moved into the room, and Esther watched father and daughter navigate a clearly established routine. Pajamas, teeth brushing. One story, tonight it was something about a brave little mouse. Esther stood awkwardly in the corner, feeling like an intruder on this intimate moment. But when Yiwon started reading, his accented voice softening into character voices, Isabella patted the bed beside her. Esther should hear too. She doesn't know about Timothy the mouse. So Esther found herself sitting on a little girl's bed, listening to a Mafia boss read about a mouse who learned to be brave, and wondering what alternate universe she'd stumbled into. After the story, after kisses and tucking in and one more glass of water and just one more hug, they finally turned off the lights. Good night, Daddy, Isabella murmured sleepily. Good night, Esther. Good night, sweetheart, Esther whispered. They left the door cracked, a nightlight glowing in the corner. Yiwon led Esther down the hall to a sitting room she hadn't seen before, smaller, more personal, with worn leather furniture and photographs that spoke of history. She'll test you, Yiwon said without preamble. Tomorrow she'll be difficult, clingy then distant. She'll see if you stay. I understand. Esther sat on the edge of a chair. It's a normal attachment response. She's been abandoned by death. She needs to know if I'm safe to trust. Yiwon poured himself a drink, Whiskey, she thought, and offered her one. This time she accepted. Her hands needed something to hold. Her mother, Minjai. He stared into his glass. We met in grad school. She was studying art history. I was pretending to be a legitimate businessman's son while learning to take over my father's organization. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He looked up, and the rawness in his expression made Esther's breath catch. If you're going to live in this house, care for my daughter, you deserve to know what you're walking into. He moved to the window, looking out at the dark gardens. Minjai knew what I was. Took her 3 months to figure it out, and when she did, she gave me an ultimatum, go legitimate or she walks, so I tried. His laugh was bitter. Spent 2 years attempting to turn my family's empire into something legal. But you can't wash blood money clean, Esther. It always leaves stains. What happened? My father was killed, rival organization. I had to step back in, take control, or watch everything collapse into war. He finished his drink in one swallow. Minjai understood. She didn't like it, but she understood. We got married anyway, had Isabella. For 6 years, I had everything. And then she got sick. Grade 4 glioblastoma, inoperable. His voice went flat, emotionless, the only way Esther suspected he could talk about it. 16 months from diagnosis, too? He didn't finish. I spent millions trying to save her, called in every favor, flew in specialists from everywhere. Nothing worked. I'm sorry. Isabella was there when she died. We both were. Minjai made me promise. He turned back to face Esther. She made me promise Isabella would grow up normal, happy, that I wouldn't let this life corrupt her the way it corrupted me. That's why you need me. That's why I need you. He set his glass down. I can keep her physically safe. I can give her everything money can buy, but I don't know how to help her grieve, how to be both parents, how to teach her that love exists when all she's learned is that love means loss. Esther stood, moving closer to him. You're doing better than you think. She knows you love her. That's not nothing. It's not enough. Maybe not, but it's a start. She met his eyes. I'll help you help her, but I need ground rules. Name them. I need to understand what I'm walking into, the danger level, whether there's going to be violence around Isabella. Never. The word was absolute. This house is sanctuary. Nothing and no one touches her here. What about out there? Esther gestured to the world beyond the windows. What if someone comes after you, after her? Then they'll learn why people fear me. Something cold moved behind his eyes, something that reminded Esther exactly who she was dealing with. I've built my reputation on being ruthless, Esther. Anyone who threatens Isabella will discover precisely how ruthless I can be. It should have scared her. It did scare her. But underneath the fear was something else, a strange, inappropriate sense of safety. This man would burn the world down for his daughter. What would it be like to be protected with that kind of absolute certainty? Second rule, Esther continued, pushing the thought away. You don't lie to me. If there's danger, if something's happening, you tell me. I can't keep her safe if I'm blind. Agreed. Third, I have full authority over her care. Education, discipline, activities. You can override me, but not in front of her. United front always. Yiwon smiled slightly. You sound like Minjai. She had the same rule. Smart woman. The smartest. The smile faded. Is there a fourth rule? Esther hesitated. Don't propose to me again. He blinked. I didn't. Isabella told me at dinner that you're going to marry me so I can be her real mummy. Esther crossed her arms. Apparently she's already planning the wedding. Purple and gold theme, in case you were wondering. Yiwon closed his eyes. Christ, I'll talk to her. She's 4, she's processing grief through fantasy. It's normal. Esther softened. But I need you to understand I'm here for her, not for anything else. This is a job. Of course. But something flickered across his face too quickly to read. Nothing but professional. Professional, Esther agreed, ignoring the way her pulse jumped when he held her gaze a beat too long. Vera will show you to your rooms, Yiwon said, stepping back and re-establishing distance. Your things will be brought from your apartment tomorrow. if you need anything. I'll figure it out. Stubborn. Practical. Esther moved toward the door, then paused. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't let Isabella down. I know. He said it with such certainty that Esther almost believed it herself. That's why you're here. Esther's suite was bigger than her entire apartment. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, walk-in closet that echoed with emptiness. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, and a door connected directly to Isabella's room. She stood in the bathroom, marble and gold fixtures, and a tub that could fit 3 people, and called her grandmother. Baby girl, Nana's warm voice flooded through the phone. I was starting to worry. You usually call by now. I know, Nana, sorry. How did you explain this? I got a new job. Oh, interest sharpened Nana's tone. Tell me everything. It's a live-in nanny position for a little girl who lost her mother. The pay is... Esther swallowed. It's life-changing, Nana. They're going to pay off my loans. Silence, then. What's the catch? Why does there have to be a catch? Esther Marie Johnson, I raised you. I know when you're dancing around something. Nana's voice went firm. Who are these people? The father is. In business, import-export. And what's he importing and exporting? Drugs, guns, trouble. Nana. Baby, I didn't raise you to be naive. If something sounds too good to be true. His daughter needs me. Esther sat on the edge of the ridiculous tub. She's 4 years old, grieving her mother, and she looked at me today like I was her answer to prayer. And the father, how'd he look at you? Like I was dangerous, like I was salvation, like he couldn't decide whether to trust me or run. Professionally, Esther lied. Nana snorted. Right, baby girl, just promise me you'll be careful. Men with that kind of money usually got it through means that come back to bite. I promise. They talked for 20 more minutes, about Nana's church ladies and her garden and the neighbor's new boyfriend, before Esther finally hung up. She stood under a shower that had more settings than her car, trying to process the day. 12 hours ago, she'd been pouring coffee. Now she was living in a mansion, caring for a Mafia boss's daughter, and trying not to think about the way Yiwon's eyes had lingered on her face when he thought she wasn't looking. Professional, she reminded herself. This was just a job. A very, very complicated job. Esther woke to screaming. She bolted upright, heart hammering, disoriented in the unfamiliar darkness. It took 3 seconds to remember where she was, and 2 more to identify the sound, a child's terrified crying coming from Isabella's room. She ran. The connecting door burst open under her hands. Isabella thrashed in her canopy bed, tangled in princess sheets, sobbing words that didn't make sense. Don't go, Mummy. Please don't go. I'll be good, I promise. Isabella. Esther reached the bed, gathering the little girl into her arms. Sweetheart, it's okay. You're safe. I've got you. Mummy. Isabella's eyes opened, unfocused and wet. Mummy, you came back. It's Esther, baby. Just Esther. Reality crashed down. Isabella's face crumpled with fresh grief, the realization hitting her all over again. Her mother was gone. This was just a stranger. Nothing had changed. I want my mummy, she sobbed into Esther's shoulder. I want her back. Why can't she come back? I know, sweetheart. Esther rocked her gently, stroking her sweat-dampened curls. I'm so sorry. The door slammed open. Yiwon stood there in pajama pants and nothing else, a gun in his hand, face hard with deadly intent. His eyes swept the room, cataloging threats before landing on them. Nightmare, Esther said quietly. The gun disappeared somewhere behind his back. The hardness drained from his expression, replaced by helpless anguish. Bella. Daddy. Isabella reached for him, and Yiwon crossed the room in 3 strides. He folded both of them into his arms, Isabella between them, Esther suddenly, acutely aware of his bare chest pressed against her shoulder, the heat of him, the way he smelled like soap and something darker, more masculine. Professional, her brain screamed. This is professional. But her body noticed the way his hand splayed across her back, steadying her as they held his daughter together. noticed the controlled strength in his arms, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her ear. "I dreamed Mummy was leaving again," Isabella whimpered. "She was walking away and I tried to follow, but my legs wouldn't work, and she just kept getting smaller and smaller." "It was just a dream," Yiwon murmured. "Just a bad dream, Ijia." "But it felt real." "I know, but Esther's here now. I'm here, you're safe." They stayed like that, tangled together in the dark, until Isabella's breathing evened out, until her grip loosened and sleep reclaimed her. Yiwon eased back first, carefully extracting himself. Esther laid Isabella down, tucking the sheets around her. The little girl mumbled something incoherent and rolled over, clutching her bunny. In the hallway, with the door cracked open, Esther finally allowed herself to breathe. "Does that happen often?" she asked. 3-4 times a week. Yiwon scrubbed a hand over his face, exhaustion evident. "They were worse right after, but they're not getting better like the grief counselor promised." "Grief isn't linear, especially for children." Esther leaned against the wall, suddenly aware she was wearing thin pajamas and nothing else. Yiwon's eyes flickered down, then deliberately away. "She's processing trauma. The nightmares might get worse before they get better." "How much worse?" "Hard to say. Every child is different." "That's not comforting." "I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to help Isabella." The words came out sharper than intended. Yiwon's jaw tightened. "I'm aware." "Are you?" Esther crossed her arms. "Because the way you looked at me just now." "The way I looked at you was a man noticing a beautiful woman in my hallway at 3 in the morning. His voice went low, dangerous. "I'm grieving, Esther, not dead, and you're—" He stopped himself. "This doesn't need to be said." Heat flooded Esther's face. "No, it doesn't." "Professional boundaries." "Exactly." They stared at each other in the dim hallway, tension crackling between them like static electricity. "I should go back to bed," Esther said. "Yes." Neither of them moved. "Mr. Park." "Yiwon." He stepped closer, and Esther's breath caught. "If we're living in the same house, sharing care of my daughter, you should use my name." "That feels—" "Professional." The corner of his mouth lifted. "We're way past professional, Esther. You're wearing my dead wife's daughter's favorite person in purple pajamas that have little moons on them, and I'm standing here half-naked having thoughts I shouldn't be having. Professional left the building around the time Isabella called you Mummy." Esther's heart hammered. "Then what is this?" "Complicated." He reached out, and for a heart-stopping moment she thought he'd touch her, but his hand stopped inches from her face, hovering. "This is very, very complicated." "I can't." "I know." He dropped his hand. "Neither can I, so we won't." "We won't," Esther agreed. "Good night, Esther." "Good night, Yiwon." She fled to her room, closed the door, and stood with her back against it, pulse racing. This was a terrible idea. All of this was a terrible, dangerous, impossible idea. But when she climbed back into her ridiculous bed in her ridiculous suite, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Yiwon had held them both, fierce and gentle and protective, like they were precious things worth guarding. Morning came too early. Esther dressed carefully, professional clothes from her own limited wardrobe, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, armor against whatever today would bring. She found Isabella already awake, sitting at the kitchen island, while a middle-aged woman with kind eyes made pancakes. "Morning," Isabella chirped, her nightmare apparently forgotten. "This is Rosa. She makes the best pancakes in the whole world." "Second best," Rosa corrected in accented English. "My abuelas were better, but she never shared her secret." "Morning, sweetheart." Esther slid onto the stool beside Isabella. "How are you feeling?" "Good. Daddy said we could go to the park today if you say it's okay." Isabella's eyes went wide and pleading. "Can we, please?" "That depends on—" "Me." Yiwon entered the kitchen, fully dressed now in another expensive suit. He looked like he'd slept perfectly, no trace of their 3 a.m. hallway encounter visible. "And on whether Esther thinks it's safe." "Safe from what?" Esther accepted the coffee Rosa handed her gratefully. "Threats are low this week," Vera said, appearing like a shadow. The bodyguard had an uncanny ability to materialize from nowhere. "The park is secure. I can take 2 additional men." Esther looked between them. "You need 3 bodyguards to take a 4-year-old to the park." "Yes," Yiwon said simply. "That's insane." "That's necessary." He poured his own coffee, movements precise. "There are people who would use Isabella to get to me. I don't take chances." The casual way he said it, like kidnapping his daughter was just a regular Tuesday concern, made Esther's stomach turn. Then maybe the park isn't. "No," Yiwon's voice went sharp. "Isabella needs normalcy, fresh air, time to be a child, not a prisoner in a gilded cage." He softened, looking at his daughter. "She goes to the park with proper security." "I want to feed the ducks," Isabella announced. "And go on the swings, and Esther can push me really high." "Not too high," Yiwon cautioned. "High enough to touch the clouds." Watching them, Esther felt something shift in her chest. This was her life now, bodyguards and threats, and a little girl who just wanted to feed ducks like any normal child. "Okay," she agreed. "The park, but we're bringing a jacket, it's cold." Isabella cheered. Yiwon's eyes met hers over his daughter's head, and the look he gave her was warm enough to melt glaciers. Professional, Esther reminded herself firmly. The park was beautiful, one of those hidden Chicago gems, all mature trees and winding paths. Vera and her 2 silent colleagues maintained a perimeter while trying to look casual. They failed spectacularly. Isabella ran ahead to the duck pond, a bag of approved duck food in her hands. Esther followed at a calmer pace, cataloging her surroundings with new eyes. After Yiwon's comments, she saw threats everywhere. The man on the bench reading a newspaper, the jogger doing loops, the mom with a stroller. "You're paranoid now," Vera observed, falling into step beside her. "Good, that'll keep you both alive." "That's comforting." "Truth isn't always comforting." Vera's eyes never stopped moving, scanning faces and exits. "You seem like a nice woman, Esther, smart, good with the kid, but you need to understand something." "What's that?" "You're a target now. Just by being in that house, caring for that child, you've painted a bullseye on your back." Vera's voice was matter-of-fact. "Mr. Park's enemies will see you as leverage, a weakness to exploit." "I'm just the nanny." "You're the woman who makes Isabella smile. That makes you important. And in our world, important means dangerous." Esther watched Isabella toss food to eager ducks, laughing at their antics. Has anyone ever tried to hurt her before? "Once, 3 years ago before Mrs. Park got sick." Vera's expression went hard. "They took her from a birthday party, had her for 6 hours." Horror flooded through Esther. "Oh my God." "Mr. Park got her back, the men who took her." Vera didn't finish. Didn't need to. "Let's just say they learned why you don't touch a Park's family. No one's been stupid enough to try since." "Is that why he's so protective?" "Wouldn't you be?" Vera gestured to Isabella, who was now trying to pet a particularly bold duck. "That little girl is his entire world. When Mrs. Park died, something broke in him. Isabella is all that's holding him together." "That's a lot of pressure for a 4-year-old." "Which is why he needs you." Vera looked at her directly. "To help her be a kid, to take some of that weight, just be careful, Esther. Mr. Park is a good man in a bad business, but good men in bad businesses make enemies, and those enemies don't fight fair." Before Esther could respond, Isabella shrieked. They both moved instantly, hands going to weapons Esther hoped would stay concealed. But it was just a duck, bigger than the others, lunging for Isabella's food bag. "He's so greedy," Isabella giggled, holding the bag higher. "Esther, look, this one thinks he's the boss." Esther's heart rate slowly returned to normal. "Maybe we should share with him. Bossy ducks need to eat too." They spent an hour at the park. Isabella played on swings and slides, ran in circles, collected interesting leaves and one extremely ordinary rock that she declared was magical. She was, in every way, a normal little girl. Except for the armed guards watching her every move. except for the way she never wandered too far from Esther, always checking that she was still there. Except for the moment when a balloon popped nearby and she flinched, eyes going wide with fear before Isabella remembered to smile. On the way back to the car, Isabella slipped her small hand into Esther's. "This was the best day," she said solemnly. "We just went to the park, sweetheart." "I know, but you were there. That made it special." Isabella squeezed her hand. "When Mummy was alive, we went to the park every week. Daddy was always too busy, but Mummy said parks were important because that's where magic lives." Esther's throat tightened. "Your mummy was very wise. Do you think she'd like you?" The question hit Esther like a fist. She knelt down, bringing herself to Isabella's level. "I don't know, baby. I hope so." "I think she would." Isabella's certainty was absolute. "Because you make me feel safe, like when Mummy was here. Daddy says safe is the most important feeling in the whole world." "He's right about that." "Esther," Isabella's voice dropped to a whisper, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." "Sometimes I forget what Mummy's voice sounded like, and that makes me feel bad, like I'm forgetting her." Tears welled in those huge brown eyes. "Am I bad for forgetting?" "Oh, sweetheart, no." Esther pulled her close. "You're not bad. Your mummy will always be part of you even if some things get fuzzy. That's okay. That's normal." "Do you think she's watching me? From heaven?" "I think if heaven is real, and if mothers can watch over their bobbies, then she absolutely is. And I think she's proud of how brave you're being." Isabella sniffled. "Will you help me remember her when I forget things?" "Always," Esther promised, and meant it with every fiber of her being. That night, after dinner and bath time and stories, Esther found Yi-Won in his study. A room she hadn't seen before, all dark wood and leather, and the faint smell of incense. He looked up from his laptop, surprise crossing his face. "Is Isabella?" "Asleep. I wanted to talk to you about something." He closed the laptop immediately. "Come in." Esther sat across from his massive desk, feeling small in the leather chair. "Isabella asked me today if I'd help her remember her mother when she forgets things." Something painful moved across Yi-Won's face. "She's forgetting." "Little things," the sound of her voice. "That's normal, Yi-Won. Memory fades, especially at her age." "Christ!" He stood abruptly, moving to the window. "Minjai made me promise Isabella would never forget her, that I'd keep her memory alive." "And you have. Those photos in Isabella's room, the way you talk about her, you're doing everything right." Esther rose, moving closer. "But Isabella needs permission to forget sometimes, to let some things go. That's part of healing." "I don't want her to heal if it means losing Minjai." "She won't lose her, but she can't live in the past forever." Esther took a breath. "Neither can you." Yi-Won turned, and the look on his face was raw. "You've been here 2 days." "I know. You don't know anything about what I'm going through." "You're right, I don't." Esther held her ground. "But I know what it's like to lose your parents young, to have everyone tell you to move on, to heal, to be strong. And I know that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself grieve instead of just surviving." "I don't have time to grieve. I have responsibilities." "To Isabella, who needs a father, not a bodyguard." The words came out harder than she intended. "She needs you to be present, Yi-Won. Not just physically safe, but emotionally available." "I'm doing the best I can." "I know," Esther softened. "And you're doing better than you think. But Isabella told me today that you're always too busy for the park, that her mother took her but you never do." He flinched like she'd struck him. "I'm not trying to hurt you," Esther continued gently. "But she notices, and she's drawing conclusions that work is more important than her, that you're too busy to care." "That's not," he stopped himself. "Christ, you're right. I usually am." A small smile. "It's annoying, I know." That surprised a laugh out of him, short and rusty, like he'd forgotten how. "Minjai used to say the same thing." "Smart woman." "The smartest." He moved back to his desk but didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against it, studying Esther with those dark eyes. "What else did Isabella tell you today?" That this was the best day she's had in a long time, because I was there. She's getting attached to you. Yes. That scares me. The admission seemed to cost him. What happens when you leave? When you decide this life is too dangerous, too complicated? She'll lose another mother figure. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. No, Esther agreed. I can't. Life doesn't come with guarantees, but I can promise I won't leave without exhausting every other option first. I can promise I'll fight for her, that I'll do everything in my power to be consistent and present and trustworthy. Why? Yiwon pushed off the desk, moving closer. Why do you care this much already? It's been 2 days. Because she gripped my legs and called me Mummy, and something in me recognized something in her. Esther met his eyes. Because I know what it's like to lose your parents and feel like you're drowning. And because someone has to care, Yiwon. Someone has to look at that beautiful little girl and decide she's worth fighting for. I fight for her every day. I know, but you can't do it alone. She took a breath. Let me help, really help. Not just with her care, but with everything. Let me be the buffer, the soft place to land, the person who makes her childhood feel normal even when nothing else is. Yiwon stared at her for a long moment. Then, without warning, he closed the distance between them. He didn't touch her, but he was close enough that Esther could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could count the faint lines of stress around his mouth. You're dangerous, he said quietly. Me, Esther's pulse hammered. You're the one with the guns and the guards and the criminal empire. Exactly, I know how to handle those threats. I've spent my whole life managing danger, calculating risk, staying 3 steps ahead. His hand came up, hovering near her face like it had in the hallway. But you, I have no defenses against you. Yiwon, you walk into my house, and within 2 days, my daughter loves you. You challenge me, call me out, make me want to be better. You look at me like I'm not a monster, and that's the most dangerous thing anyone's done in years. I don't think you're a monster. You should. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Because the thoughts I'm having about you right now, they're not appropriate for my daughter's nanny. Heat flooded through Esther. We can't. I know. This is impossible, unprofessional, a terrible idea. His hand finally made contact, fingers ghosting along her jaw. I know all of that, but it doesn't change the fact that I haven't felt anything in 8 months, 2 weeks, and 5 days. And then you walked into my life wearing a coffee-stained apron, and suddenly I'm feeling everything. Esther's breath caught. Every rational thought screamed at her to step back, establish boundaries, remember why this was a catastrophically bad idea. But his touch was gentle, reverent, like she was something precious. And she couldn't remember the last time anyone had looked at her the way Yiwon was looking at her now, like she was salvation and temptation wrapped in one impossible package. This is complicated, she whispered. Very. Isabella needs stability, not drama. Agreed. So we should stop, right now, before this becomes something we can't take back. Absolutely, but neither of them moved. The moment stretched, taut with possibility. Esther could feel herself leaning in, drawn by gravity or insanity or something she didn't have words for. Then a crash echoed from downstairs. They sprang apart. Yiwon's hand went to his waistband, to the gun Esther now knew was always there. His entire demeanor changed in a heartbeat, cold efficiency replacing heat. Stay here, he ordered. Like hell. Esther, his voice went hard. That's an order. Lock the door behind me. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, take the stairs to Isabella's room, grab her, and hit the panic button behind the painting of the horses. It'll seal the panic room and alert Vera. What's happening? Probably nothing, but if it's something, he cupped her face roughly, urgently. Promise me you'll protect her, no matter what. I promise. He kissed her forehead, quick and fierce, and then he was gone, moving with lethal grace toward the stairs. Esther stood frozen, heart racing, the ghost of his kiss burning against her skin. Then she did exactly what he told her not to do. She followed him. The crash had come from the main floor. Esther descended the stairs silently, staying in the shadows, watching Yiwon move through his home like a predator stalking prey. The living room was destroyed. Someone had thrown a brick through the massive window, glass scattered across marble floors. But it wasn't the brick that made Esther's blood run cold. It was the message, spray-painted across the white wall in red. You took everything from us. Now we'll take everything from you. Below it, a photo. Yiwon and Isabella at the park. Today, someone had been watching them. Vera burst through the front door, gun drawn, 2 more guards behind her. Sir, perimeter is secure. Whoever did this is gone. Check again. Yiwon's voice was ice. Then I want every camera reviewed. I want to know who got close enough to take this photo and why no one stopped them. On it, Vera barked orders into her radio. Esther stepped into the light. Yiwon. He spun, fury flashing across his face. I told you to stay upstairs. I don't take orders well. Clearly, he crossed to her in 3 strides, gripping her shoulders. That was stupid and reckless and... Who did this? The anger drained from his face, replaced by something darker. Enemies, rivals who think they can hurt me by threatening my family. They photographed us today. They were at the park. Esther's voice shook. Isabella was right there. I know, his grip tightened. Which is why you're going to pack a bag for both of you. We're leaving. Leaving where? Somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find us. He released her, turning to Vera. Call ahead to the lake house, full security sweep. I want it locked down within the hour. Sir, if we run. I'm not running. I'm securing my daughter while I handle this. His voice went deadly quiet. And then I'm going to find whoever did this and remind them why you don't threaten a park. Esther grabbed his arm. Don't do anything that will. What, make me more of a monster? He looked down at her, and the emptiness in his eyes was terrifying. I'm already a monster, Esther. I've just been pretending to be human for Isabella's sake. But whoever did this crossed a line. They brought violence to my home. They threatened my daughter. And me, Esther realized. That message, they're including me now. Yes, something cracked in his expression. Which is my fault. I should have kept more distance, should have been more careful, but I let you get close and now. Now I'm part of this, Esther finished, and I'm choosing to stay. You don't know what you're choosing. Then tell me. She stepped closer, refusing to back down. Tell me what I'm walking into, who these people are, what they want. Yiwon stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a decision. The Choi family, Korean mob, old rivals of my father's organization. We've had an uneasy truce for years, but 3 months ago, I had to make a move that hurt their business. They've been looking for payback ever since. What kind of moves? The kind that put their leadership in prison and dismantled their East Coast operations. His voice was flat, factual. They lost territory, money, and face. In our world, that demands a response. So they come after Isabella. They come after everything I love. He glanced at the spray-painted wall. And apparently, they think that includes you now. The weight of those words settled between them. Pack your bag, Yiwon said quietly. I'll get Isabella. We leave in 20 minutes. The lake house was 2 hours north of Chicago, hidden deep in Wisconsin woods. They drove in convoy, 2 SUVs front and back, Yiwon's car in the middle. Isabella slept through most of it, curled against Esther's side, exhausted by the sudden late-night disruption. Esther watched the dark trees blur past, processing everything. 2 days ago, she'd been pouring coffee. Now she was fleeing to a safe house with a Mafia boss and his daughter, targeted by rival criminals, her life irreversibly changed. What are you thinking? Yiwon asked from the driver's seat. He'd insisted on driving himself, Vera beside him in the passenger seat. That I should be terrified. But you're not. Oh, I'm terrified. Esther looked down at Isabella's sleeping face. But I'm also something else. Determined maybe, they don't get to hurt her, I won't let them. You sound like Minjai. Yiwon's voice was soft. She had that same fierce protectiveness, like a lioness with her cub. Tell me about her. Esther surprised herself with the request. Really tell me, not just the grief parts. Yiwon was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she laughed at my jokes, even the terrible ones. She made me try things, art museums, poetry readings, once even a Korean cooking class because she said I'd forgotten my roots. A ghost of a smile. She believed I could be more than what I was raised to be, and for 6 years she made me believe it too. What did she look like? Like sunshine. The words were immediate, unguarded. Blonde hair that was always escaping whatever she used to tie it back. Blue eyes that saw through every wall I built. She was small, barely 5'3", but she had this presence. When she walked into a room, everything got brighter. Isabella has her smile, Esther observed. Yes, and her stubborn streak, and her ability to see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. He glanced in the rearview mirror, catching Esther's eyes. She would have liked you, would have appreciated how you stand up to me. Not many people do that. Not if they're smart, but there was warmth in his voice. Most people in my life either fear me or want something from me, but you look at me and see a man who needs to spend more time at the park with his daughter. Because that's what you are, underneath everything else. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly what you've earned. Esther shifted, trying not to wake Isabella. Can I ask you something? Always. When this is over, when the chores are dealt with, what happens then? Do we just go back to normal? Pretend tonight didn't happen? Yiwon's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I don't know. I haven't thought past keeping you both safe. Well, start thinking. Esther's voice firmed. Because Isabella needs stability. She needs to know that the people in her life aren't going to disappear. And I need to know if this, she gestured between them, if whatever this is complicates that. Do you want honesty? Always. Then honestly, I have no idea what this is. I know I'm attracted to you. I know you make me feel things I swore I'd never feel again. I know that when I saw that brick through my window, my first thought wasn't for my business or my reputation. It was whether you and Isabella were safe. He paused. And I know that scares the hell out of me. Me too, Esther admitted quietly. So what do we do about it? We table it for now. Focus on keeping Isabella safe getting through this crisis. And then, she trailed off, not sure how to finish. And then we see what's left when the dust settles, Yiwon completed. Yeah. They drove in silence for a while. The only sounds the hum of tires on asphalt and Isabella's soft breathing. Esther, Yiwon's voice was barely audible. Yeah. Thank you for staying, for not running the moment things got dangerous. Where else would I go? Esther smiled softly. Someone has to make sure you actually take your daughter to the park. His laugh was quiet but genuine. And despite everything, the danger, the impossibility, the absolute insanity of her situation, Esther felt something settle in her chest. This was where she was supposed to be, even if she had no idea what came next. The end. And just like that, Esther's life went from pouring coffee to fleeing into the night with a Korean Mafia boss and his 4-year-old daughter. The Choi family wants revenge. Danger is closing in fast, and somewhere between the chaos, Esther might be falling for the one man she definitely shouldn't. Was saying yes the bravest thing she's ever done, or the biggest mistake of her life? If you're hooked, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Now drop a comment and tell me, Team JAE1, should Esther take the risk and fall for this dangerous man who's trying to be better? Or Team Safety, should she keep it professional and protect her heart? Let me know which team you're on, and I'll see you in the next story.